Okay, here's your second tutorial in Pixlr. Today you're going to be using this tool called the Clone Stamp tool, which allows you to basically stamp an area of the picture and then cover up something that you want to remove with the area that you stamped. So you'll have 3 pictures on canvas. The clone stamp images. There is the date stamp, the pole, and the line, and a ring. When you download these, they are in a zip folder, so you just have to extract them, which I think we've all figured out from the last assignment how to do that. So once they're downloaded, then you can open them up in Pixlr. I want you to start with the date stamp image, so we'll go open image, clone stamp images, and the date stamp. So this used to be a common thing you would see on pictures, especially with film cameras, is the date stamp. And to me, there's no point for that now because digital is in the properties, the date, and all the information you can find there. So we want to remove the numbers off of the picture as well as the 2 heads at the bottom. So to do that, you have what's called your clone stamp, and it looks just like a stamp. I would leave it on source. Right here you can adjust your brush size, softness, and step, which just spaces it out. So I leave this at a pretty small number because of what we're doing. Softness will, as you can see, create that fuzz around the edge, so it will blend it a little bit better. So I'm going to leave this probably around 60 because I don't want a harsh circle when I stamp. And then the size, when I determine the size, I look at whatever I'm stamping and I make my brush just a little bit bigger than that because I don't want to stamp or cover up anything that doesn't need to be covered up. I want to do minimal covering as possible. These are all presets. So you could click on a size like this, and then when I come out here, what I'm going to do is hold down my shift key, and now you see this circle up here. That shift key is basically telling you this is what the area inside that circle is what you're stamping and using to cover this up. But that's too big, so I'm going to resize my brush a little bit smaller. Maybe let's go about 30 and 40 pixels. Yeah, that's better. I want that circle just a little bit bigger than the numbers that I'm covering up. So what I'll do is hold down shift and click over here. So shift, click your mouse, and it should say, my screen just said select source. Then as I come over here and start stamping, so I'm just clicking my mouse on my computer. We are now covering up that area. And this is a little bit different than Photoshop, so sometimes it takes me a second to figure out how to make it look the best. So if you notice, every time I click, it's coming from the exact same spot. We can change our selection just by simply clicking and selecting again. And that way you get some of the detail of the water. So I usually go back over it and kind of blend things together so that we don't see any repeating patterns. That's the big thing with the clone stamp tool. When I look at a picture, I can usually pick apart who's used it because I see a repeating pattern. So down here, this part's a little tougher because we have 2 different shades in the water. That's a big thing. When you're using the clone stamp tools, you have to pay attention to shadows and different colors. So right here in the water, we have the reflection of the air balloon. This water is different because that is showing the ripple of the boat going across. Down here we have shadow. So what I do is I stamp so that my cursor is in between the 2 colors. And then I come straight over here and try and continue that line. That way I get the shadow down here and the color of the water, and then if I need to, I can kind of touch it up just a little bit more. I'm grabbing different areas as my source so that you don't see that repetitious pattern. And then over here we have the shadow or reflection of the hot air balloon where we have some color and then the regular water. So I'm going to stamp here to gather a little bit of color, but to keep that line going. And then I'll grab some over here and kind of blend those together. Control Z or Command Z, depending on if you're on a Mac or a PC, will undo a step, and so I use that quite a bit, and that's just Command Z. Over here, this is your history panel, and it shows you every time you click. So this is all the clone stamps I've done just on one image. So if we zoom out, which is Command minus, and zooming in is Command plus, when I zoom out, we have no date stamp, no heads, and it looks pretty consistent to what the water was. If you're not careful when you stamp and you're moving and you stamp over here, you could be painting something that doesn't exist, and then you see that it doesn't look natural. We want to make things look natural, not weird. We just use the clone stamp tool to cover up things that we don't necessarily have control over when we take the picture. So that's how the clone stamp works. The next image, I'm going to open another image.
Mom.
Okay, for this one, it's a little trickier. You're going to remove the power line, the lines, and the pole. So when I start on this one, I zoom in. If you hold down spacebar, you can move it around. Clone stamp again. And I'm going to start with the power lines and remove them. Maybe. So I'll shift and click. And then I remove that one, and then I'll go over here, shift, and I move straight across so that my source is pretty much parallel to what I'm using to cover it up, and I might switch over here and work my way down and across. I'll reselect again. You can barely see the clouds in the picture, but they do make a difference in your clone stamp. So again, just move straight across as you're working your way down the picture. I always start at one end and then go to the other, instead of jumping around. So we'll keep working down. Go to this side. And this side again. Okay, I don't want you to remove these because this is part of the picture, and again, we're only removing what we absolutely have to. So as you get close to this area, just be careful that you're not removing those branches. Okay, I'm going to zoom in again and get a little bit closer to this pole. So usually what I do for this part is do half and half. So let me make that a little bit smaller again. I'm going to go about 50. And instead of selecting right next to here, I'm actually going to use this area right here so that it doesn't look the same. Trees are fairly easy to cover. See that repetitious pattern right there? That's what we don't want. So I'm going to move this around and try and grab from some different areas so that it doesn't look the same. Right here, I can use this area right here because we have some mountain plus the tree, so I'm going to stamp right there and then create that edge along the picture. Same thing with right up here. I'm actually going to stamp from over here because that's about the same angle as the mountain is right here. So I'm going to click right there and then come back over here and fill that in, and that way we keep the same line going across the mountain. And then I'm going to shrink this down really small and stamp right here to try and fill in that last little remaining bit of the pole, and right here and right here. And then I'll just keep working my way down. So I'm going to grab from right here and then select a different area. And we really just want to make it look as natural as possible. So when I get down here, I'm going to use this and then maybe grab some of this color. And for as basic as this program is, it actually does a pretty good job. There are definitely some advantages to using Photoshop, and I wish you all had access to it, but with the circumstances, I'm just glad I can still show you a few things in the editing side of photography that hopefully you'll be able to use. So again, I just keep working my way down. And there I have the pole covered up. The last one